Okay, thank you. Okay, we got the minyan. We read it all. So again, we left off again the same machlokes that we've been dealing with, which is machlokes Rabba and Rava. Rabba holds that the reason why the shliach has, when he brings a get from Chutz La'aretz, has to say b'fanai nechtam is because they're amaratzim in Chutz La'aretz, right? And Mamela, they don't know that it has to be written lishma with a mapik hey, right? To her name, not the way we were understanding it till now, right? To her name, it has to be written to her name. So they don't know that. That was Rabba's reason. Rabba's reason was because there weren't enough people going back and forth. So every shtar needs a confirmation. You wouldn't be able to confirm it like this. You get the shliach to confirm it, and then you'll have a confirmed shtar, and then you won't worry about her being an akuna. So, but the bottom line is the shliach has to say b'fanai nechtav. He says, I saw the get being written, and I saw the get being signed. So the Gemara is trying to figure out who is the Tana that holds that a get needs to be written lishma and sealed lishma. We had Rebbe Lazar, who holds that it just needs to be written lishma. He doesn't need the chasima lishma. And we have Remeir, who holds the opposite, that the sealing is the seal, the signature is the main thing, and the writing we don't care about. What do you say? Somebody want to say something? No? Okay, so anyway, so we don't know who the Tanas of our Mishnah is. Again, Rebbe Lazar holds that the ksiva has to be lishma, the signing does not have to be lishma, and Remeir holds that the signing has to be lishma and the ksiva does not have to be lishma. So there were 3 lines down from the top, Dalet Amud Aleph. So we say Elalayla Rebbe Lazar. We're going to say really it's Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar chasima. When does Rebbe Lazar not need a chasima? That's where there's no edim at all. Meaning they don't have edim, so they don't have edim to sign it. So they wrote the get. It was written lishma givaldik, right? And you have witnesses that prove that say that the guy wrote it, right? And then, but hold on one second. I'm sorry. This time, that's it. Yeah. Well, that's the.
No. They're not ready like that.
Okay, so again, back. I apologize. Elalaylam Rebbe Lazar. We're talking about Rebbe Lazar, who says he does not need a chasima at all. Rebbe Lazar chasima hechet edim klau. Where does Rebbe Lazar not need a chasima? That's where there's no edim. I mean, they have no edim to sign on the get. Okay, so there's no edim. So Rebbe Lazar says that it's fine. Hechet the ika edim, but where there are edim, then you need it to be lishma. Rebbe Lazar is maida that when you have a shtar that's mezuyat mitoich, I mean, it is forged within itself. Meaning, if you have signatures, Rebbe Lazar holds this by all shtars, not just by get. He holds you don't need to have a shtar signed. But he says, but if you're going to have it signed and the signators, right? The signators are puzzle, then that's going to puzzle it up, right? Meaning, he holds if you're not gonna do it, don't do it. But if you're gonna do it, you got to do it right, right? That would be the way to say it, right? So Mamela, that's what we mean here. So therefore, if there are signatures on the get, then even Rebbe Lazar's maida that they need to be legit. So therefore, you need the shliach to say that. Right? Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi is different shot. Hamani Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Ashi is with Rabbi Yehuda. A third sheet. It's not Rabbi Yehuda. Paisel achate ksubasai, ksivasai, bechasimasai, betolish. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if the get is puzzle until you have the ksiva and the chasima betolish. So now basically we just found a shita that says that you do need ksiva and chasima. So we spent an amud trying to figure out whether it's Rebbe Lazar or Reb Meir, of which it didn't really fit. And now Rav Ashi all of a sudden comes along. What's the problem? We have a Tana, Reb Yehuda. We have Reb Yehuda who says that he holds it needs a ksiva and a chasima. Okay, so the Gemara asks, "May Kara my time limit like Reb Yehuda? Why are you looking for terutzim lefi Reb Meir and lefi Reb Lazar? Why don't you just say it's Reb Yehuda?" So the Gemara says, "Mahadrina na Reb Meir." The one answers, "Mahadrina na Reb Meir." The stamas is Reb Meir. The reason why we wanted it lechatchila to be Reb Meir because it's a stam mishnah, and a stam mishnah is like Reb Meir, right? Madrina and Rebbe Lazar, and we're looking to be Rebbe Lazar, the Karmel Hilchos Gittin. We hold like we always passing like Rebbe Lazar by Gittin. So lechatchila, we wanted the Mishnah to be like either a mayor, because then that would fit with the basic rule, or we wanted to be like Rebbe Lazar because we know we passing like Rebbe Lazar. But we couldn't find, so we tried to find that. We couldn't find this, so we're going to go with Rebbe Yehuda. Okay, so now
when it says Tamas Nisan Remeir, the raya for Reb Meir's shita was also from a Stam Mishnah. It doesn't say Reb Meir Omer on the base or top of the base.
Right.
It's pointing out how strong it is the Stam Masnis and Reb Meir. Bring a raya for Reb Meir's shita from a Stam Mishnah.
You're saying that it's
that's how strong.
What was the other option?
From something that says Reb Meir Omer. We brought a raya what Reb Meir's shita is from a Stam Mishnah. We want to say that our Mishnah is Reb Meir from a Stam Mishnah.
Is like Reb Meir, so they still got to prove it. It's halfway through Shas already.
No, but you're saying that that this Cholkim here
to that Mishnah, yeah, Reb Yehuda and Reb Elazar. And that Mishnah is just Reb Yehuda. Sorry, that Mishnah the Gemara brought a raya from.
I hear. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, good. So now the Gemara has again, we have Machlokes Rabba and Rava, right? So now the Gemara is going to say that we have Machlokes Tanoim, that Rabba and Rava are the same as the Machlokes Tanoim. So Tanan Rabbi Gamliel Omer, Afa maybe meaning our Mishnah says, Afa maybe mean a Rekem and a Cheger, even if you bring a get from Rekem and Cheger. Right, so those are on the border of Eretz Yisrael. Even from Kfar Ludim Lulud, which we said are like cities that are within each other. What are we talking about? We're talking about cities that are close to Eretz Yisrael and cities that are absorbed into the Tchum of Eretz Yisrael. Meaning that the border is jagged. Right, so some of these cities are going to be like within the border of Eretz Yisrael, but really they're outside of the border, and some are stam on the border. So those are the cases. He said, and I saw that place, which was Karludim Lulud. That was like the amount of time it takes to go from Kubi to Pumbedisa, right? And Mechlal. So that's what That's Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Gamliel was saying. That means the Tanakama, who didn't say anything about these cities, then they hold that it doesn't need. Right? So you have the two shitas, whether they're within the borders, outside the borders, in the Tchum, outside of the Tchum, that say this thing. So Mechlal, right? So it's
Yaakov, there's always a border. I mean, what's it? It's either in Eretz Yisrael or it's not. There's a border.
Right. No, so these shitas hold. These shitas hold that on the border. Well, that's what we're going to say to machlokes. Let's see in a minute. Right. So, but again, it seems like we have a machlokes about border cities, whether they have this din or not. Right. We're about halfway down Dalet Amud Aleph now. So my lab. So what's the machlokes? The my lab what to come if the marsav if you shein beki and lishma. The Tanakama says that they're not beki and lishma. Right. Vahani gemiri. So the people that are near the border of Eretz Yisrael are more learned, even though Ba'etzem they live outside of Eretz Yisrael. But since they would live within the vicinity, right? So they're always around. So Memela, they're more educated. And the other Shita, Reb Gamliel and Reb Eliezer, they hold that it's because there's not enough people traveling back and forth. Right? And the people that live outside Eretz Yisrael, also it's not common. Right? I guess, I'm not sure why. I don't understand why. If the cities are so close to each other, why isn't it common for the people to be traveling back and forth? Right? There must be, like Rashi says, there was a chirum beinehem. They must have been fighting. There were border issues. There were border issues between Eretz Yisrael and these border towns. So Mamela, they were not easily traveled back and forth to, but for some reason they were educated, right? Now I don't know how they become educated if they can't travel back and forth. Right? Saying how did that work? From osmosis?
They had art scroll.
Oh, maybe they smuggled a Malamed in.
Yeah, but then that Malamed could be an aid also. No?
It wasn't common.
But it must have been common enough that they should be educated. That how were they educated? But I guess they were close enough. They were Rebbeim, Malamdim, close enough. You want to say? Okay, maybe.
I think the Havamina is that Avir Eretz Yisrael spreads a little bit.
Oh, now you're saying a deep zach.
If it's that close, there's Avir Eretz Yisrael Mach.
I hear. I can't say I would have thought that shot, but you're right. I don't know if you're right, but where does it end? There's a border for Avira Eretz Yisrael. Maybe it depends which way the wind blows.
No, a guy gets in the way and then it stops.
No, because you have the kibush of David that added to Avir Eretz Yisrael, so there has to be whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Either way, fine. But that's what we want to say, that the machlokes between Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Gamliel and the Tanakama is the same machlokes in Rabba and Rava. Okay, so Gemara says, "Loi Rabba mitaratz tamei, Rava mitaratz tamei." Rabba and Rava can both say that they hold like both sets of Tanai. Meaning, we want to say that the machlokes ameroyim is the same as the machlokes Tanoim, right? And now the Gemara, each one is going to say, no, it's not a machlokes, and both of the Tanaim could go like Rabba, both of the Tanaim could go like Rabba. Everybody holds that it's not B'kei Lishma. Since these cities are close, they're learned. The ones that are absorbed in the tchum are considered learned. Smucha is legitimate, but just because they're close, that's not gemiri. Meaning, if it's inside, let's say it's a jagged border. So the towns that are inside, like the part that juts into Eretz Yisrael, those towns are more educated. I guess, I'm assuming, but I don't know, that they use it as a shortcut to go from one part of Eretz Yisrael to the other, and they cut through Chutz La'aretz. Right? So Mamela, they're constantly back and forth. But if it's stam on the border, then that doesn't mean that they're educated. Also, Rebbe Eliezer, remember, Mavlois nami loy. And Rebbe Eliezer says Mavlois also don't work. So like tachlik medina sayam. It's like tachlik means we're not going to differentiate. We're not.
Did anybody tell Rabbi Stefanski? Did anybody tell Rabbi Stefanski he's saying share in New York City, not in 5 towns or Nassau County?
Yeah. Okay, so now. And now you're saying a good thing now, because how does this work how would this work in modern times where the world is one big place? Both shitas would hold that you don't need to say there's people constantly traveling back and forth, and the education because of technology is all over. Right? So That plays into Hilchos Lashon Hara too, that we were learning in Orchos Tzadikim, where it says, but if you say it in front of three, so you could, in that town, at least people know about it. Nowadays, it spreads all over the world instantly, right? So maybe the whole world you'd have the heter too. Okay, I don't know how it would work in practical. Okay, that's the way to understand according to Rava and Rava. Rava made the kuli everybody holds because there's no edim around to be mekayim. Tanakama Sover, the Tanakama holds Hani Kiva the Smuchas Mishkach Shchichi. These cities, since they're close, so people are constantly going back and forth. And Rabbi Gamliel says no. The ones that are inside the borders, I mean they're outside the borders, but they're inside, the parts that stick at Eretz Yisrael, they're common. Smuchas l'shchichi, ones that are smuchas that are stam close, it's not common. So Rabbi Elazar just says of light plug. Once we're out from Chutz La'aretz, we're out from Chutz La'aretz. Fine. Tanan, we learned in the mission. Now we're going to try and find another machlokes Tanoim that we think is what Rav and Rav are arguing about. Tanan b'chachamim b'imrim. Right? Only somebody who takes it brings it from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, and also somebody who takes it from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. So, right, that's what the Chacham say. If somebody's taking a get from Eretz Yisrael, then you don't need to say b'fanei nechtam. So then it's fairly obvious what the Gemara is thinking. Again, the Chachamim in the Mishnah say that you need to do it both ways. A get coming from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael is a problem, and a get coming from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz is not a problem, but needs to say b'fanei nechtam, right? So and the Chachamim obviously don't. They say only if you come from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, not from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. So what's going to be the machlokes? My lab akamitzuki the marsa will be shem bekiin l'shma. They're not bekiin l'shma. The Tanakama says they're not bekiin l'shma. So therefore, but in Eretz Yisrael they are bekiin l'shma. So there's no reason to say v'fanei nechtam when you go to Eretz Yisrael. Amid base v'hani gemiri, right? And these learned people in Eretz Yisrael know the halachas. So when they take a get, the Chutz La'aretz is no problem. Umar Sover, the other one that holds that you do need to say b'fanei nechtam when you go from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, because the Edom are not found, because there's no traveling between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael. So even when you take a get from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, it's also not common, right? So it seems fairly obvious that the machlokes Tanakama Chacham in the Mishnah is the same machlokes as Rabba and Rava. Right, so then Gemara says again, Rabba Mitaratz Tamei, but Rabba Mitaratz Tamei. Each one's going to have their own reasoning. Rabba Mitaratz Tamei, the Kuli Alma, Lefi Shein Bekin Lishma. He's going to say that everybody holds the reason is because people in Chutz La'aretz don't know that has to be written in her name. They're having a machlokes whether we should make a gezerah that once we're making somebody bring a get from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, he has to say b'fanei nechtam. So then we don't want people to forget that. So even somebody taking a get from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz also has to do it. The Tanakama says there's no reason to make that gezerah. Nobody is getting mixed up between bringing a get from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael and bringing a get from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. Rabbanan Basroi Sabri Gazrina Moilachatu Mevi. And Rabbanan Basroi hold that we do make the gezerah. That's Rabba's way of understanding it. Rabba Mitaratz Tamei. And Rava could say his reasoning, the Kuli Amal Fishain Edom Tzin L'Kaima. Everybody holds because there's both Tanakam and Chacham hold that the reason is because people are not constantly traveling back and forth. Rabbanan Basroi, Lefrushe time in the Tanakam Huda Asir. And the Rabbanan Basroi, they're not saying anything new. They're coming to explain the Tanakam. And they're saying not only does the Tanakama say that you need to say b'fanei nechtam on a get that's coming from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, you also need to say it from going from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz because it's a problem of the people traveling back and forth. Okay, fine. So now we don't have any specific thing. specific machloikas tanaim that's the same as a machloikas Rav and Rav. Now,
Why wouldn't they say low plug? Why wouldn't they say because we say it from Chutz La'aretz to Yisrael, we should do it from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz? It's a low plug. That why we make an exception, and everyone in Chutz La'aretz is going to say, "Oh, you don't have to say it." The guys from Eretz Yisrael are so learned; they don't say it. So why should we say it?
well, if they're going to cut, you're saying that you should make a low plug the other way, or that you mean we should make a low plug?
Saying it's a low plug, saying if we have to say it from outside to Eretz Yisrael, it should be a low plug every time it leaves, goes over the border. You always have to say it. Like that
Right.
should be why don't we say it? I'm just saying, why isn't that the reason? Forget about people traveling back and forth. If one person goes from Eretz Yisrael and he doesn't say it, then everyone in this in Chutz La'aretz is going to learn that you don't have to say it.
Well, isn't that what the other shita holds? That we made a kizera, maybe.
Yeah, but the reason isn't a low plug that they're not going to know. It's going to be because people don't travel back and forth. That they're given a reason. So if we can change the reason, then we don't have to hold it anymore.
You're asking me to
Nowadays, people can fly anywhere they want. They can go anywhere they want. So people
you're
can
asking
travel.
according to Rabba or Rava?
We're talking. Isn't this the Tanakama?
Well, we're saying that the Rabban, with this last part, the Rabbanan are coming to explain the Tanakam.
It really would work for either one of them.
In Rava, you don't need a light plug. Everyone is masking according to Rava that both directions need it
What's the reason?
because they need in between the kaimah. People don't travel. People don't travel in either direction. So mainly you need it both directions. The Tanakama just didn't mention it. The Chachamim are explaining the Tanakama. The Tanakama holds of it also. If no one travels, no one travels. You're always going to need the Vanei Nechta. In Rabbah, there's a chiluk. There's a machlekes Tanakama and Chachamim. That's because Gemiri, whether they know or not, he holds that everyone is maskim. Tanakama and the Chachamim agree that in Chutz La'aretz they're not Gemiri, and in Eretz Yisrael they are Gemiri.
Right.
The
So no
Chachamim
matter
hold
which,
kind of a light plug.
Okay, I don't know. You want to say that we should just start telling people reasons, and then Memela they won't get a, what do you call it?
saying it's the opposite. I'm saying once you start giving them a reason and the reason doesn't exist anymore, then people are going to hold it. But if you say it's a low plug for whatever the reason is, then we're just not going to make an exception. Everyone needs to do it so nobody makes a mistake, which is really what they're both holding.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
Gershon disagree.
That's the Chachamim. The Tanakama doesn't hold like that, according to Rabbah. According to Rabbah, there's no need for a light plug. According to Rabbah, the Chachamim hold there is a light plug. The Tanakama holds there's not a light plug. There's no reason to make it. It could be because if they're like Gemiri and Chutz La'aretz, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to decide to send a get with someone who can't say the Vanei Nechta. And in Eretz Yisrael, they'll stop it. Whoever accepts it in Eretz Yisrael will say, oh, you got to go back and come back again with someone who can say the Vanei Nechta. That's the worst that can happen.
I mean, okay, I'm not sure. I'm divided between the Cleveland and the West Hempsteads. All right, fine. So now the Gemara goes through a rapid fire kashas on Rabbah and then some on Rabbah. So Tanan, maybe get Medina. This is coming from our Mishnah. Maybe get Medina Sayam. Right? If somebody's bringing it from one country to another country within Medina Sayam. So what would you say? So tzarach lamer Vanei Nechta. Right? Because they're not educated in Lishma. Haba Isa Medina, the Medina Sayam, like tzarach. But within that Medina, you don't need it. So the Rava Nicha, that makes sense according to Rava, the Rava Kasha, according to Rava Kasha, meaning the Mishnah is meduyik, that if you're bringing a get from one side of town to the other side of town, right? People are always constantly traveling back and forth within town, correct? So since they're traveling back and forth within town, you don't need to say one another. But if you go with Rabba's reason, because people in Chutz La'aretz are not educated, okay, so then you should have to, anywhere you go in Chutz La'aretz, you have to bring a get. You have to say one another. Right? So l'chayra, the Mishnah seems to be a kash on Rabbah. So Gemara, he says, light tema, haba isa medina has medina's hayam light sarah. Don't say that the diak to be made is if it's within that Medina's hayam, he doesn't need it. Ela ema mi Medina le Medina be'eretz Yisrael light sarah. From Medina to Medina and Eretz Yisrael, you don't need it. Right? That's the diak. If it's with one Medina to another Medina in Eretz Yisrael, you don't need it. Okay, so that's pretty posh because that fits according to both, right? You don't need, because according to Rabbah they're educated, and according to Rava they're traveling. So Gemara says, but it says that beferish in the Mishnah. Maybe get Eretz Yisrael. Somebody brings a get in Eretz Yisrael. We said that beferish. So Gemara answers, no. That's b'diavad. If you didn't say b'fanei you're okay. But l'chatchila, we wouldn't say this, meaning, and you should say b'fanei another, even in Eretz Yisrael, kamash malan, that in Eretz Yisrael you don't have to say b'fanei another. Meaning, so the chiddush would be that one is l'chatchila, one is b'diavad. Fine. So that's the way the Gemara asked the kasha that way. Those that had this similar shakra v'tarya, but sort of the opposite. Medina be'eretz Yisrael, it's mashma that if you go from Medina to Medina and Chutz La'aretz, so then you need to say mashma that from one Medina to another Medina in Eretz Yisrael, you don't need it. So that makes sense according to Rabbah, because according to Rabbah, they know they're educated in Eretz Yisrael. Some Mela, they don't need to say one another. The Rava kasha, according to Rava, it's a kasha because it's Medina to Medina in Eretz Yisrael. Who says people travel back and forth, right? So why does it say it doesn't need a get? So when it says light time Medina Eretz Yisrael, light tzarich, don't be medayik that when the Mishnah says that from Medina Chutz La'aretz, the diak is to be made that from Medina Eretz Yisrael, you don't need to say it. Ela ema haba isa Medina, but Medina's hayam light tzarich. Within that Medina, in Medina's hayam, you don't need it. So that fits according to Rava, because within that Medina, there's people constantly traveling. So the Gemara asks, Medina be'eretz Yisrael, but what would you be medayik? What is the story from one country, from one state in Eretz Yisrael to another state? What would be the din? Tzarich, you would need it, right? That's the din. Listening, maybe Medina stam. So then why don't you just say that anytime you go from one Medina to another Medina, whether it's in Eretz Yisrael or whether it's in Chutz La'aretz, according to Rava, since people are not constantly traveling back and forth, you need to say vananat. I mean, why? The Gemara is asking now, why specify from one Medina to another Medina to Chutz La'aretz if it means both? So just say Medina. So the Gemara answers, Medina be'eretz Yisrael, nami like tzarich. Even again, this is according to Rava. Even from one Medina to another Medina in Eretz Yisrael, you don't need it, right? Tekivan deika oile regalim mishkash tichi. Since in Eretz Yisrael there are always people coming from Chutz La'aretz because of the being oile regel, so therefore you can find people going back and forth, and this changes the whole machlokes now, because this is Rava talking. So that means Rava agrees that within Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to worry about people traveling back and forth, because that's fine. So it means Rava's maida that within Eretz Yisrael, you're okay. So Gemara says, okay, Tinach Bizman Beis Hamikdash Kayim. Bizman Shein Beis Hamikdash Kayim, Ma'igel Meimar. What are you going to say when there's no Beis Hamikdash? Nobody's being Oil Regel, unfortunately. So Gemara answers, Kimadika, but they din in the Kvi, Baba, there's Bezdin. Right? On Mondays and Thursdays, Rashi says, as it was Masak and Bezdin, so since there's Bezdin on Mondays and Thursdays, Mishkach Shrichi, so you're going to have people traveling around. Right? So therefore, we can assume that you'll be able to verify a get. Right? Now, and the Batei Dinin and Chutz La'aretz from Medina, they did not have. Right? So I'm not sure. They did. They didn't in Chutz La'aretz. They were not worried about this din of Ezra that there should be, but they didn't. I don't know. Fine. So
You're
Tanam,
saying since there's other
Right.
Bate Dinim in Chutz La'aretz, so it's also going to be found that you
and
need.
from one Medina to another Medina in Chutz La'aretz, yeah.
So it'll be found, and you could establish the get.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Unless, you tell me there was no but they did in Chutz La'aretz. That they all
Right.
have to,
No, that's what bothered me. I'm saying, isn't that,
good. Baruch Shekivanti. I don't know. I am, yeah.
what happened with
How many-
Kiddush HaChodesh? What happened with Kiddush HaChodesh?
Kiddush Chodesh had to take place well, I don't know what they did.
They went from Etzra to Chutz La'aretz, no?
Yeah. What?
The Kiddush HaChodesh, no? They went from...
You mean Stam? You're asking that there were people traveling back and forth because of that?
Yeah.
But that after
There
the
was
Beis
one
Hamikdash,
guy
you
on a
didn't do that.
horse. Wasn't people traveling back. It was one guy on a horse.
Yeah. Well, you're saying it
It's the
wasn't
same
just-
result. It's only Bisman Shavez Mikdash Kayim.
What do you
Siaka,
mean?
can I ask Dovi Lang a question?
Go ahead.
Dovi, for how many years did they keep it blocked off? They didn't let people be other regular when they split the kingdoms up.
Oh,
That was from Yerovam ben Nevat all the way to, that was probably about half the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. Probably about 200.
Okay, I rest my case.
we got what you're saying. All right. It wasn't the gay. You're saying it wasn't the gay that much. Okay, very good.
Thank you, Dovi.
Okay, so Tanan, Reb Shimon Gamliel, another kasha here. Reb Shimon Gamliel says, "Afilu mehagmunya lahagmunya," which we said meant you have. It's in the same Medina, but it's one leader to another leader. Rabbi Yitzchak, Ir Achas Ha'is Beretz Yisrael. There was a city in Eretz Yisrael, Asisius Shema, and his name was Asisius. Hayu Babeis Hagmanias, and it had two leaders. Shayu Makpidin Zalza. They were makpid on each other. Right, meaning they didn't allow anybody to go. That's like Germany, like East Germany, West Germany, something like that. They didn't allow anybody to go back and forth. So they had to say from Agmunya, right? That's why you need to say the. So the Rabba Nicha, according to Rabba, makes sense because the Rava Nicha, according to Rava, it's Nicha because his whole issue was that there's not enough people going back and forth. So here, even though it's in the same city, but since they're not allowing you to go from one side of the city to the other side of the city, so then you need to have the agent, the shliach, say before the but the Rabba kasha, but according to Rabba, it's a kasha. This is an Eretz Yisrael. They should be educated, right? So now here we go. Rabba islay de Rava. Now we say Rabba agrees to Rava. So Rabba holds that there's two reasons, meaning Rava, that there's people not traveling back and forth, that will be, according to Rabba and Rava, will require you to say Rabba has an additional requirement that if it comes from Chutz La'aretz, since they're uneducated, you also have to say right? So Memela, you have, according to Rabba comes out much stricter than Rabba. Before there was different scenarios for each one. Now Rabba comes out, he holds that you need an additional requirement. If there's people not traveling back and forth, according to both Rabba and Rava, it's a problem. But if it's just in Eretz Yisrael, then Rabba is gonna actually no, Zana is stricter. He's gonna be more maker. No. He's going to be more machmer. No, according to Rabba, well, we'll see the nafkamin in a second. So, anyways, Rabba has an additional requirement about the lishma. Right. So, okay, my elamai benai. So, what's the difference between them? Right. If Rabba is agreeing to Rabba, so what's the difference? So the difference is going to be in two scenarios where according to Rava, it's not going to be a problem. According to Rabba, it is. Let's say two shluchim, right, came and brought the get. So if you hold that the reason is because of lishma, so then it may not be lishma if it comes from chutz la'aretz, right? So Rabba's going to still have a problem with it. Rava is not going to have a problem with it, and Rabba won't have a problem with it either. Else the confirmation, but he still has an issue of that it's from chutz la'aretz. Inami ba'isa Medina Sayam, or within that Medina in Medina Sayam, which Rava holds. And Rabba will hold out the traveling back and forth. That's fine because it's in the same Medina. But Rabba has an additional problem of it not being there no lishma. So Mamela, it wouldn't work there. So it comes out that it's really only two places where there's a machlokes Rabba and Rava, right? When two people bring it from chutz la'aretz, two edim, two shluchim, bring it from chutz la'aretz Eretz Yisrael, right? And also and within one Medina in Medina Sayyam, right? Because in both of those cases, Rabba's going to hold the get needs a funny neftam, and Rabba's going to hold it doesn't need. Okay, so we'll stop over here because we're going to ask kashas on Rabba. That's tomorrow's daf Bez Hashem. Okay, the Olam should have themselves a good tvach and a good yor, and I might have to start a little later tomorrow night. I'm not sure if do. Yeah. All right.
Good Chodesh.
Oh, good Chodesh. I forgot. Good Chodesh. Yeah. All right.